ancient promises for today's battles. The night Daniel Carter almost walked away from faith forever, he sat alone in his car outside a hospital, watching rain slide down the windshield while doctors fought to keep his father alive inside. His business had collapsed weeks earlier. Debt collectors called daily, and now the one man who taught him to trust God lay unconscious behind emergency room doors. And in that moment, Daniel whispered something many people are afraid to admit. God, where are you? Because here's the question no one wants to say out loud. What happens when prayers seem to fail, when good people suffer, when life falls apart even though you tried to do everything right? What if the battles we fight today were already answered in promises written thousands of years ago? And what if the moment you feel like quitting is actually the turning point you cannot yet see? Stay with this story. Because what Daniel discovered in the darkest season of his life revealed a truth so powerful it changed everything he believed about struggle, faith, and unseen protection. And maybe, just maybe, it will change how you see your own battles tonight. Daniel never imagined life would collapse so quickly. Only a year earlier, things felt stable. His small logistics company was finally profitable after years of grinding work. His parents were healthy, and his wife Elena talked excitedly about buying a home where they could raise children. Daniel believed hard work and faith together built a secure future. But life, as he would soon learn, does not follow our plans. The first blow came when a major client unexpectedly pulled out, leaving Daniel's company struggling to pay employees. He took loans to keep things alive, promising himself it was temporary. Then fuel prices spiked, transportation costs rose, and contracts disappeared one after another. Within months, he stood in his office staring at empty desks, after letting his staff go, each apology heavier than the last. That evening, Elena tried to comfort him, but fear lingered behind her smile. Daniel lay awake wondering how he would fix everything. Then came the call about his father collapsing at home. Suddenly, business losses didn't matter. Hospital corridors replaced boardrooms. Machines beeped steadily while doctors spoke in careful tones about heart damage and uncertain recovery. Daniel sat beside his father's bed, remembering childhood mornings when his dad woke early for work, yet still found time to pray with the family. God never wastes pain, his father often said. At the time, Daniel believed him without question. Now, watching the strongest man he knew lying fragile and silent, doubt crept in. Days blended together, bills piled up, bank warnings arrived. Elena's patience grew thinner as stress invaded their home. Conversations turned into arguments. Daniel felt trapped between responsibilities he could no longer carry. Prayer became difficult. Words felt empty. Hope felt distant. One night, after yet another tense conversation about finances, Daniel drove aimlessly through the sleeping city. Neon lights blurred past as thoughts spiraled. He questioned everything. His decisions, his faith, even his identity. Eventually, he parked near an old neighborhood where his family once attended church. The building stood quiet now, lights off, parking lot empty. He almost drove away. But something inside told him to step out. The air was cold. Leaves scraped across the pavement as he walked toward the locked entrance. Through the glass doors, moonlight revealed familiar pews and the cross at the front. Memories flooded back, singing hymns beside his mother. His father's steady voice in prayer, childhood certainty that God listened. Daniel sat on the steps outside, head in his hands. Anger finally surfaced. "I've tried," he muttered. "I worked hard. I believed. Why is everything falling apart?" No answer came, only distant traffic and rustling trees. Yet slowly something shifted, not externally, internally. A realization surfaced that faith was never meant to guarantee comfort. It was meant to carry people through chaos. His father never promised easy days. He promised God's presence in difficult ones. The next weeks remained hard. Daniel sold his company assets to settle debts. Pride stung as he accepted temporary warehouse work to survive. Elena struggled with disappointment, and their relationship felt fragile. His father's recovery remained uncertain. Nothing magically improved, but Daniel began to change. Instead of fighting every moment, he learned to endure them. Instead of asking why constantly, he started asking what he could learn. He visited his father daily, reading scripture aloud even when responses were only slight finger movements. He volunteered weekends helping neighbors with repairs, rediscovering purpose in simple acts of service. And then something unexpected happened. A former competitor called, offering Daniel a managerial role in a new distribution partnership. Smaller pay than before, but stable. Daniel accepted cautiously. Months later, that company expanded rapidly after securing international contracts. Daniel's experience helped operations grow, and soon he found himself earning steadily again. Meanwhile, investigations revealed financial misconduct in one of his previous business partnerships. Had his company survived, Daniel would have been implicated despite innocence. Losing his business had unknowingly protected him. And in the hospital, doctors reported his father's heart function improving beyond expectations. Slow recovery, but hopeful. Sitting beside his father months later, Daniel finally understood something shocking. The season he thought was destruction was actually redirection. Sometimes losses guard us from unseen disasters. Sometimes delays prepare us for better opportunities. Sometimes faith works quietly while we struggle loudly. Years later, Daniel stood again outside that same church, now renovated and full of families. Children laughed in the parking lot. Worship music flowed from open doors. Elena, now smiling beside him, held their infant daughter. Inside, his father walked slowly but steadily, grateful simply to be alive. Daniel realized faith was never about avoiding battles. It was about surviving them. And maybe right now someone listening to this story feels like Daniel once did. Exhausted, disappointed, wondering if hope still exists. Maybe prayers feel unanswered. Maybe life feels unfair. But stories like this remind us that ancient promises still stand in modern struggles. That unseen protection often hides inside painful seasons. That sometimes the breaking point becomes the turning point. So if tonight feels heavy, hold on. Your story may still be unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. And if this journey spoke to your heart even a little, support this mission by liking and sharing this message so hope can reach someone else who needs it. Subscribe to the Soul Spire because your support helps us continue bringing stories of faith and encouragement to people across the world. Watch our previous videos too. There may be messages waiting for you there as well. Carry this truth with you tonight. Storms pass, faith grows stronger through trials, and your story is far from over. Because unbreakable faith isn't about never falling. It's about rising every single time. The following months should have been peaceful for Daniel, yet life proved again that faith is not a straight road upward, but a winding path where new challenges appear just when you think stability has finally arrived. The new job demanded long hours, and success brought pressure Daniel hadn't expected. Expansion meant responsibility for hundreds of employees, shipments crossing borders, decisions affecting families he didn't even know. Some nights he lay awake again, anxiety creeping back like an old shadow. Only now, instead of financial ruin, his fear was failure on a larger scale. What if he let people down again? What if success slipped away the same way his business once had? At home, Elena struggled with motherhood more than she admitted. Sleepless nights, exhaustion, and the emotional toll of the previous years surfaced unexpectedly. Small disagreements turned into sharp arguments. Daniel sometimes returned late to find her crying quietly in the kitchen, feeling overwhelmed and alone. And once again, he felt helpless. The same feeling that haunted him during his company's collapse. One evening, after a particularly tense argument, Daniel took a late drive to clear his mind. The city lights shimmered under a calm sky, so different from the stormy night that once drove him toward despair. Yet the question resurfaced. Why did peace never seem to last? He stopped at a quiet overlook above the city. From there, countless lights stretched into the distance, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's struggles, victories, fears, and suddenly it struck him. Every person down there carried invisible battles. No one lived without storms. His phone buzzed. A message from Daniel's mother. Your father wants to talk. At the hospital, his father's recovery continued slowly, but his spirit remained strong. Sitting beside his bed, Daniel listened as the older man spoke with difficulty yet surprising clarity. Son, his father said, voice weak but steady, do you know why storms come? Daniel shrugged tiredly. Life, I guess. His father smiled faintly. Storms show you what's strong and what needs rebuilding. Daniel stayed silent. His father squeezed his hand. You lost your business, but found purpose. You nearly lost faith, but discovered endurance. You're still learning. We all are. Driving home later, Daniel replayed those words. Maybe struggles weren't punishments. Maybe they were lessons, shaping something stronger. But the next test came faster than expected. A sudden economic downturn hit international markets, and shipments slowed drastically. Panic spread through the company. Executives feared layoffs. Daniel watched familiar anxiety ripple through offices again. The same fear he once faced from the other side. Except now, he had influence. Instead of cutting staff immediately, Daniel proposed temporary pay adjustments and new client strategies to keep workers employed. The decision was risky and leadership hesitated, but Daniel remembered how unemployment once crushed his own confidence. He pushed forward. Weeks passed in uncertainty. Then slowly, contracts resumed. Operations stabilized. Layoffs were avoided. One afternoon, a warehouse worker approached Daniel quietly. The man's eyes filled with tears as he thanked him. If I'd lost this job, he said, my family would have lost our home. Daniel walked away shaken. Years earlier, he begged God to save his business. Now he realized losing it allowed him to save others later. And that realization changed him. Yet life still wasn't finished teaching him. Late one winter night, Elena woke Daniel with panic in her voice. Their daughter, Lily, struggled to breathe, fever burning hot. Within minutes, they rushed to emergency care. Hours crawled by as doctors treated a severe respiratory infection. Daniel sat in the waiting room again. The same fear, the same helplessness returning. Memories of hospital corridors and desperate prayers resurfaced. And in that moment, he realized something surprising. His prayer was different this time. Not bargaining, not demanding answers. Just trusting. Whatever happens, he whispered, help us through it. By morning, Lily stabilized. Recovery followed quickly. But Daniel understood something deeply personal. Faith didn't mean fear disappeared. It meant fear no longer controlled him. Years continued passing. Daniel's career grew, his marriage matured through shared struggles. His father eventually regained enough strength to enjoy retirement with family. The storms didn't stop, but Daniel faced them differently now. One evening, while cleaning the garage, Daniel found an old box filled with documents from his failed company. For a moment, memories of shame and disappointment resurfaced. Then he smiled softly, because he finally understood the truth he once resisted. Every broken chapter prepared the next one. That night, Daniel sat on his porch watching sunset colors fade. Lily playing in the yard while Eleanor laughed nearby. Peace wasn't the absence of problems. It was gratitude despite them. And somewhere deep inside, Daniel knew future battles would still come. Life guaranteed that. But he also knew something stronger now. Faith doesn't make you unbreakable because nothing hurts. It makes you unbreakable because you keep rising. And maybe somewhere tonight, someone listening feels like giving up again. Maybe struggles seem endless. Maybe answers feel distant. But Daniel's story continues to whisper a quiet truth. Some blessings arrive disguised as losses. Some protection feels like disappointment. And sometimes what feels like the end is only preparation for a better beginning. Years moved forward, and for a while Daniel almost believed life had finally settled into something predictable. Work stabilized, his father's health remained manageable, and Lily grew into a bright, curious child who filled their home with laughter. Weekends became sacred family time. Park visits, church gatherings, quiet dinners that felt like rewards after years of struggle. Daniel sometimes caught himself smiling for no reason, grateful simply because peace existed. And yet life has a way of testing faith again, just when comfort feels permanent. It began with Elena. At first it was subtle. Fatigue she blamed on work and parenting, occasional dizziness, headaches that lingered longer than usual. Daniel encouraged her to rest, assuming stress was catching up with her after difficult years. But one evening, while preparing dinner, Elena suddenly dropped a plate and collapsed. Everything moved too fast. The ambulance ride, Lily crying as neighbors took her inside. Hospital corridors flashing by again. Corridors Daniel thought he had left behind forever. Hours later, a doctor sat across from Daniel with careful eyes and careful words. A neurological condition, treatable but serious, long recovery ahead, possibly surgery, months of therapy. Daniel felt the ground disappear beneath him. Not again. He walked outside into cold night air, breathing heavily as memories flooded back. His father's illness, financial ruin, uncertainty. He clenched his fists, anger bubbling again. Why? He whispered toward the sky. Haven't we had enough? For a moment, old doubts returned. Had faith only brought repeated pain? Were blessings temporary illusions before the next storm? But then another realization quietly surfaced. Every past storm he survived had prepared him for this one. Inside the hospital room, Elena looked scared but tried to smile when Daniel entered. He held her hand, forcing strength into his voice. We'll get through this, he said, though fear still gripped his chest. The following months became the hardest season Daniel had ever faced. Work responsibilities collided with hospital visits. Lily struggled to understand why her mother couldn't come home immediately. Medical expenses piled up again, threatening financial stability. And exhaustion nearly broke him. Some nights Daniel sat alone in his car after visiting hours ended, unable to move, staring blankly through the windshield. Faith didn't feel triumphant. It felt like survival. But something different happened this time. Friends from church organized meal schedules, co-workers offered flexible hours, neighbors helped care for Lily. Support came from places Daniel never expected. One evening, an elderly neighbor Daniel barely knew knocked onto his door with homemade soup. She smiled gently and said, "Years ago, when my husband was sick, strangers helped us survive. Now it's my turn." Daniel realized then that faith sometimes works through people. Not miracles falling from the sky, but hands reaching out in ordinary ways. Weeks later, Elena underwent surgery. Daniel sat again in a waiting room, heart racing, praying not for explanations, but for strength. Hours crawled by. Finally, the surgeon emerged with reassuring news. The procedure succeeded. Recovery would take time, but prognosis was good. Daniel felt tears spill freely, not from despair, but relief so overwhelming it nearly knocked him breathless. Recovery was slow. Elena had to relearn routines, rebuild stamina, fight frustration when progress felt delayed. Some days hope shone brightly, other days discouragement crept in. But Daniel stayed steady. One afternoon, while helping Elena practice walking in their living room, Lily ran in laughing and wrapped her small arms around both of them. Elena laughed through tears, whispering, This is why we fight." And Daniel understood. Faith wasn't about avoiding hardship. It was about discovering strength within it. Months later, Elena regained independence. Life found rhythm again, though scars remained. Emotional reminders of battles survived. One evening, Daniel returned to the old chapel where his turning point once began. Now fully restored, warm lights glowed through stained glass windows. Inside, people prayed quietly. Daniel sat alone in the back pew, reflecting on years that transformed him. He thought about losing his business, nearly losing his father, almost losing his wife, and countless moments where giving up seemed easier. And suddenly, clarity settled over him. Every battle revealed something. He learned humility through loss, compassion through hardship, courage through fear, and faith through endurance. Daniel realized unbreakable faith didn't mean never doubting. It meant choosing hope even after doubt. As he stepped outside into cool night air, his phone buzzed. A message from Elena. "Hurry home. Lily wants bedtime story from Daddy." Daniel smiled, starting his car. Life remained imperfect. Future storms would come. But now he understood something deeply reassuring. He didn't need a perfect life. He needed resilient faith. And maybe someone listening now stands where Daniel once stood, exhausted, confused, wondering how much more they can endure. Here's the truth, Daniel discovered. Sometimes life falls apart, so something stronger can be built. Sometimes darkness teaches us to appreciate light. And sometimes the hardest chapters prepare the most beautiful endings. Years passed, and life finally seemed to settle into something Daniel once believed impossible. Ordinary peace. Elena regained strength. Lily grew into a joyful, curious child, and Daniel learned to balance ambition with presence at home. The scars of previous years never fully disappeared, but they no longer hurt. Instead, they reminded him how far they had come. Yet life held one final lesson. It came quietly, without warning. One autumn morning, Daniel received a call from his mother. His father had suffered another heart attack during the night. This time, recovery was unlikely. Daniel drove to the hospital in silence, memories flooding back with every mile. Childhood fishing trips, early morning prayers, lessons about honesty and perseverance. When he entered the room, his father looked smaller than Daniel remembered, breathing slow and heavy. But his eyes lit up when Daniel approached. They spoke softly about simple things at first. Lily's latest school story, Eleanor's recovery, work updates. Finally, his father squeezed Daniel's hand with surprising strength. "Son," he said slowly, "do you remember when you thought everything falling apart meant God abandoned you?" Daniel nodded, emotion tightening his throat. His father smiled faintly. "Faith doesn't mean life won't hurt. It means pain doesn't win." Daniel struggled to speak. "I didn't understand that back then." His father's voice softened. "You do now." A peaceful silence filled the room. Minutes later, his father closed his eyes, breathing gently as sleep overtook him. He passed away later that night. The grief hit Daniel harder than expected. No matter how prepared you think you are, losing someone leaves an emptiness nothing replaces. At the funeral, surrounded by family and friends, Daniel watched people share stories of his father's kindness, generosity, quiet faith. And something profound became clear. His father's greatest legacy wasn't money or success. It was faith, lived daily. Weeks later, Daniel visited the old chapel once more, alone. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting colors across wooden floors. Sitting quietly, he replayed the journey that brought him there. Failures, losses, unexpected blessings, moments of despair followed by surprising hope. And suddenly, the entire story made sense. Unbreakable faith didn't mean life spared him pain. It meant pain never destroyed him. Every loss shaped resilience. Every setback revealed hidden protection. Every unanswered prayer eventually revealed a better answer. Daniel walked outside into crisp evening air, breathing deeply. For the first time, he felt complete peace. Not because life was perfect, but because he trusted whatever came next. And maybe right now, someone listening to this story feels trapped in their own storm. Maybe hope feels distant. maybe faith feels fragile. But Daniel's journey leaves us with a truth worth holding on to. Storms will come, loss will hurt, questions will remain unanswered for a time. But if you keep moving forward, if you hold on to hope even when it feels small, you'll eventually see what Daniel discovered. Sometimes the breaking point becomes the turning point. Sometimes the hardest battles create the strongest faith. And sometimes what feels like the end is only the beginning of something greater. So tonight, wherever you are, remember this: your story isn't finished. Your struggles don't define your future. And faith, even when tested, can carry you through battles you never imagined surviving. And if this story touched your heart, help this message reach someone else who might need hope right now. Like and share this video so light can travel further. Subscribe to the Soul Spire and continue walking with us through stories that uplift, encourage and strengthen faith across the world. Watch our previous videos as well. You never know which message might arrive exactly when you need it most. Share these stories with friends and family. Spread hope where discouragement grows. And remember, your support allows us to keep creating stories that remind people they're never alone. Carry this message with you. Faith doesn't promise an easy road. It promises strength to keep walking. Sleep tonight, knowing you are seen, loved, and guided, even when the path feels uncertain. Because unbreakable faith isn't about never falling. It's about rising again, every single time. And your next chapter is still waiting to be written.